The worst part about blind dates wasn't the awkwardness, it was the hope. Mark had learned that lesson 3 years ago when his wife Sarah died, leaving him with 2 kids and a heart he'd carefully locked away. Tonight, sitting across from Jennifer in this dimly lit Italian restaurant, he could feel that familiar wall going up brick by brick. She was lovely, really, smart, successful, with kind eyes that crinkled when she laughed. But every time he tried to focus on her words, his mind drifted to Emma and Jake at home with the babysitter, probably negotiating for extra screen time. "I'm sorry," Mark said finally, setting down his untouched wine glass. "This isn't working. You're wonderful, but I'm just not. I think I should go." The disappointment flickered across Jennifer's face before she masked it with a practiced smile. She'd been here before, too, he could tell. They all had, the walking wounded of the dating world, carrying invisible scars and hoping against hope that someone might understand. Mark was reaching for his wallet when the restaurant door burst open with such force that several diners turned to stare. 2 small figures came barreling through, a girl about 7 with wild curls and a boy no more than 5, both breathing hard like they'd run a marathon. Mark's blood ran cold. Those were his kids. Emma's purple sneakers, Jake's Batman backpack. "Dad!" Emma gasped, skidding to a stop at their table. "Wait, please wait." "She's coming." "Who's coming?" Mark was already standing, his heart hammering. "Emma, what are you doing here?" "Where's Mrs. Peterson?" "We left her a note," Jake announced proudly, then seemed to remember the gravity of their mission. "But, Dad, you can't leave yet. The lady's almost here." Jennifer had risen, too, her face etched with concern rather than annoyance. "Are you okay?" she asked the children, and something in her voice, genuine worry for 2 kids she'd never met, made Mark's chest tighten. Before anyone could answer, the door opened again, and a woman stumbled in, clearly exhausted. She was wearing hospital scrubs, her hair escaping from a messy ponytail, and she looked like she'd been through a war. Her eyes scanned the restaurant frantically until they landed on Mark's table. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, rushing over. "I am so sorry." "You must be Mark. And Jennifer?" She looked between them, her face crumpling with a mixture of relief and mortification. "I'm Lisa. I was supposed to be here an hour ago, but there was an emergency at the hospital, and I couldn't leave my patient and my phone died and—" She stopped, noticing the children for the first time. "Wait, why are there kids here?" Emma stepped forward with the solemnity of a tiny diplomat. "We heard Dad telling Mrs. Peterson about his date. He said his friend set him up with someone really nice, but he was nervous because he hasn't dated since Mom died. Then we heard him leave and we knew he'd probably mess it up because he always does." "Emma!" Mark felt his face burning. "It's true, Dad," Jake added matter-of-factly. "You told Uncle Rob you sabotage stuff because you feel guilty being happy without Mom." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. Here he was, his deepest insecurities, laid bare by his 7-year-old, in front of 2 women who were essentially strangers. He looked at Jennifer, expecting to see pity or discomfort, but her eyes had filled with tears. "I'm sorry," he managed. I don't even know what this is." "We snuck out," Emma continued undeterred, "because we knew you'd leave early. You always do. And we saw this lady running down the street looking at addresses on the buildings, and she looked really sad and tired, and we just knew." Lisa sank into an empty chair at the neighboring table, looking like she might cry. "I've had the worst day. My patient, she's only 8, she coded twice during my shift. I've been trying to save her life, and all I could think about was that I was missing this date and probably blowing my one chance with someone who might actually understand what my life is like." "You're a nurse?" Jennifer asked softly. pediatric ICU. I'm sorry, I know this is your date. I'll go. This whole thing was a disaster from the start. Actually, Jennifer said, and something in her tone made everyone look at her. This isn't my date. Not really. My sister set this up. She's been trying to get me to move on since my divorce, and she knows Mark through her husband. But the truth is, I've been going through the motions for months now, saying yes to dates I don't want, pretending I'm ready when I'm not. She looked at Mark with something like understanding. We were both about to walk away from something we weren't really present for anyway. Weren't we? Mark felt the truth of it hit him. Yeah, we were. Lisa stood up, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I should really go. This is awkward enough without... Wait, Emma said, that same command in her voice she'd used when they first entered. Just wait, okay? Everybody just wait for 1 minute. She grabbed Jake's hand, and the two of them went into a huddle, whispering urgently. Mark watched them, these two pieces of his heart walking around outside his body, and felt something crack inside him. They were 7 and 5, and they'd snuck out of the house, found their way downtown, and interrupted a date because they'd been worried about him, because they'd wanted him to be happy, even if it meant having someone new in their lives. Emma turned back to the adults, her expression so serious it was almost comical. Mom used to tell us that love isn't like pizza. She said pizza is finite, Jake continued. If you give someone a slice, you have less pizza. But love is infinite, Emma finished. If you give love to someone new, you don't have less for the people you already love. You just have more love. More love everywhere. The words hung in the air, simple and profound, spoken by children who'd learned about, lost too young, and were somehow still wise enough to believe in the expansion of the heart rather than its limitation. Mark felt the wall around his heart develop its first real crack in 3 years. He looked at his kids, these brave, ridiculous, beautiful kids, and then at the 3 women at this table. One who'd been kind even when she didn't have to be. One who'd run herself ragged saving a child's life and still felt guilty about missing a date, and his own children who loved him enough to stage an intervention. I don't know what's supposed to happen here, he said finally, but I think we're all hungry. And I know the lasagna here is amazing, and maybe... He looked at Lisa, really looked at her, seeing the exhaustion and hope and vulnerability in her eyes. Maybe we could start over? All of us? Lisa's smile was tentative but real. I'd like that. Though I have to warn you, I'm definitely ordering the entire left side of the menu. I haven't eaten since 6 this morning. Jennifer laughed, the sound genuine now. Can I stay? Just as a friend? Because I have a feeling this is going to be the most interesting dinner I've had in years, and honestly, I could use more people in my life who understand that it's okay not to be okay. The more the merrier, Mark said, and meant it. As they pulled tables together and Emma and Jake settled in with the bread basket, Mark caught Lisa's eye across the table. She was smiling at something Jake was saying, her earlier exhaustion lifting slightly, and he felt it, that dangerous flutter of possibility. Maybe his kids were right. Maybe love wasn't finite. Maybe hearts broken open had more room than hearts sealed shut. The waiter came over looking confused at their expanded party, and Emma took charge of explaining that they needed more menus and also, did they have chocolate cake because this was a special occasion. As the chaos of ordering began, Mark realized something. He hadn't felt this alive, this present, this connected to the moment in 3 years. Sarah would have loved this mess. She would have laughed at their children's audacity, would have made space at the table for everyone, would have understood that sometimes the best things in life come from plans falling apart. And for the first time since she died, the thought of her didn't bring just pain. It brought gratitude for what she'd taught him, about love's infinite capacity. "Thank you," he whispered to Emma, who beamed at him. "We're just getting started, Dad," she whispered back. And in that moment, surrounded by new and old connections, by children and strangers becoming something more, Mark believed her. They were all just getting started.